despite the jailer and cinematic being just beyond disappointing, it may have just revealed a pretty significant hint for us in regards to what could be the next expansion. Whether Denathrius will be involved in the future, whether he might have been the true mastermind behind this entire million IQ master plan that we thought was Zovaal's, and what was the actual connection between the two. So did Denathrius just reveal a whole bunch of information for what is to come? You must have wiped out a million times in your WoW years, but you probably didn't have Squad OE with you. And this is an app that records your instances automatically, and you can see your complete performance from spell visualizations to death recaps, and best of all, it is free. You don't have to do anything but install it, and you can share yours and watch your friend's perspective. So use the link in the description and check out Squad OE. Denathrius is essentially just a brand new villain, and Blizzard talked about him and his role pretty much somewhere around mid-Shadowlands. Originally, they intended to make him just a passing bad guy that we would face off, defeat, but as he was super well received mainly due to his voice actor as well as personality, they decided to continue using him in the future. However, this is what they said, yet they have not actually used him ever since we defeated him all the way back in Castle Nathria at the start of the Shadowlands. Denathrius since then made a small appearance when the Dreadlords rescued him by infiltrating Revendreth and taking the Sword of Remonia where he was imprisoned, but as far as we know, in 9.2 he doesn't actually appear anywhere or has any sort of a significant or even a small villain role. There are some small hints of Dreadlord trying to restore his form in Zereth Mortis, but he doesn't actually have any sort of a significant function since his defeat. One of my immediate thoughts at the time is that they just decided to abandon him, which would honestly just not be surprising whatsoever. I mean, that happened to a bunch of characters so far in the Shadowlands. It is pretty much the expansion signature at this point. For example, Blizzard said that Bane will be meeting Kyrn and learning the truth of his people, and how did that work out exactly? This is just one of the million different examples where interviews and hints actually led nowhere. However, my mind changed with the new cinematic, and I think this is actually a really big hint that most people just completely glossed over, mainly because they were just so disappointed in that end cinematic that they didn't actually think about it deeply. So Jailer is defeated. He is having these flashbacks of his original failure all those years ago in imprisonment, and all these Eternal Ones that are his family are just berating him and talking like, you did this, you did that, and Denathrius is saying, you could have sought another way, brother. Imagine what we could have accomplished together. Now, this is just one sentence for you wouldn't even really think about it too much, but there is seriously so much we could unpack here, which could really lead into the next expansion and Denathrius continuing as the true villain or a much more important character than you being just a random jailer sidekick. Now, as the entire Shadowlands is as vague as it can possibly get, and we have like 5 answers and 15 to 20 questions, I can't really give you a complete summary as everything just ends in maybe. We don't know to what extent, but here is what we actually know, some of the facts that have been confirmed and that we can extrapolate from them. So, it is no secret that Denathrius has been working with Zovaal and that they have been close associates. In fact, Denathrius has obviously been his most important ally in this mission, even though we don't really know what this mission even is, which makes it a bit ridiculous. More than likely, Zovaal would not be able to escape were it not for Denathrius, as Revendreth is a realm for redemption. It is the one most prone to corruption, and so easily can all these powerful evil souls just not be redeemed but instead be sent into the maw, and that is exactly what Denathrius had done. He provided him the critical amount of anima to break free. However, as Denathrius failed, Zovaal didn't think twice before abandoning him, and it was up to his Dreadlords to actually go to his rescue. Now, here is where it gets confusing, and I gotta say, I'm really pissed off to be making yet another video where we don't actually know what exactly is going on, because I feel like I've been doing that pretty much since Shadowlands was even announced. There was always just patching things up from these vague hints. The facts that we know is that Denathrius created the Dreadlords and organized all these things, and that he was apparently working with the jailer. Whether they were partners, whether he was working for him or under him is unclear, but as some things have recently been revealed, especially that new line in the cinematic, I think we can assume things with a lot more precision. So the quick summary is that Denathrius built a vent here in Revendred, and then the Dreadlords, that was essentially the secret service of the Shadowlands, but mainly it seems like this was his actual pet project to gather more power. It is unclear when, whether this was before or after Zovaal's original imprisonment, but I think it is more than likely before, and the Dreadlords have been a part of this pretty much since the original Afterlife was around. This line in the new cinematic strongly hints that Denathrius was also aware of this truth that Zovaal learned, which of course we don't know what it is, but they didn't agree to work on it together at that point in time. The other Eternal Ones were obviously just completely rejecting this as heresy, while Denathrius wanted to take his own approach. If Blizzard actually explained what it is, you know, I could actually cover it for you guys and explain it to you, but let's assume this is the what is to come, the thing the Jailer talked about most recently, this massive threat that will be relevant in the next expansion. Now, it is likely, as Zovaal was the arbiter of the Shadowlands, he learned of this catastrophe as he assessed the memories of all the mortals that passed through, and more than likely, he realized that damn, we're getting an influx of mortals that attest to this catastrophe, which got him to go on this mission to try to reshape the universe, take things into his own hands, sort of just being like a very discount Sargeras. Now, I'm guessing Denathrius was also aware of this through his agents that he has all over the universe, but he realized that he can't just barge into the Sepulchre, undo the mechanism of the first ones, and he would need to get rid of the other cosmological forces through attrition, which is like a million-year-old master plan. So, in fact, it is possible that this crazy IQ plan that we have attributed to Zovaal may have actually been that of Denathrius. Now, I'm guessing Zovaal realized that this is dumb and it would take way too long, so he decided, let's just brute force it, got imprisoned almost immediately within the maw, and you know the rest of the story. Denathrius was in on it, but he had to align with the Eternal Ones to imprison him, to not stay suspicious, which is why he kind of whispered to Zovaal that he could have sought another way in that flashback that we have seen in the cinematic. Zovaal, as he languished in prison for like a bajillion years, realized that what Denathrius was doing is the only actual way, so he decided to ally with him in order to retry once again, and you know how that turned out as well. Now, I know I'm being repetitive, but as we don't know what the plan is, what the threat is, or whatever else is going on, of course we can only speculate. However, if this really was the plan of Denathrius, what exactly was it? What has been this thing that he has been working on for so long? The actual facts we know is that he created the Dreadlords and essentially through them infiltrated every single cosmological force, which led to the demise of the Titans, the creation of the Legion, destruction of many worlds, and all the recent events. Now, you may be thinking, didn't Zovaal say the universe has to be united? How does this make any sense? Hasn't the entire plan been to just divide the universe? It is pretty much all they have done so far. I am of course aware of how contradicting this sounds, but I think the angle they're going with here is divide and conquer. So Denathrius wanted to not divide the cosmos, but to weaken everyone so that death can break free from this mechanism and can actually just conquer the entire universe so that everyone can be united under the umbrella of death so that they can face off against this threat that is to come. As cheesy as it sounds, it makes honestly the most amount of sense, at least with the current information that we have. It also goes along with what Zovaal has been saying about how everyone will serve. Of course, as we are creatures of life, this doesn't really sound like good news to us, but I think this is the most logical theory we can piece together from this mechanism. So to summarize, my belief is that this plan and all this manipulation has actually been the machination of Denathrius, and Jailer only sort of joined this plan later on, but he only used it as a means to an end. His goal has always been to just brute force it. Now, as he had failed once again, right in the Sepulchre this time, I think they did that flashback to Denathrius to show us that Denathrius is still around and that it hasn't actually failed completely. Maybe Denathrius' patience will finally play out in the next expansion, or he will shift his focus to something else as the Jailer didn't accomplish what he wanted to do in the Sepulchre of the first ones. This puts Denathrius in the spotlight for the next expansion and this big what is to come. Additionally, it sort of explains the roles of the two characters because honestly, it never really made sense to me that Denathrius, the creator of the super intelligent Dreadlords that did all these things, would just serve some guy that is imprisoned in the maw, even though they're both on pretty much the same level. My guess is that they were working on the same goal with two approaches and decided to unite at a certain point, only that one approach failed, so the remaining one is that of Denathrius. Thank you for watching. Check out 12 crazy podcasts of Shadowlands by clicking on the screen and check out Doronsmovies Academy for videos on real world history. See you next time.